Yo, what is up guys, it's Lil Vibes here back with another video. Today I'm going to give you guys my full-fledged review of the Marvel Avengers game. So far I've put about around 20 plus hours into this game, so I think I have enough knowledge and gameplay experience to give a solid review of this game. Now if you guys want to see more content like this, make sure to smash that like button, subscribe, and turn on post notifications. One more thing, I'm not going to be doing a review like everybody else. Now a lot of people, what they do is they just talk about the game and then at the end they give a review out of 10. What I'm going to be doing is I'm going to break up this game into 4 different parts, and I'm going to be giving a score each different part out of 10, and at the end of the video I'm going to average out all of the scores to give you guys one final score. So if you guys are hesitant about getting this game, hopefully this video will help you guys out. Now obviously it is my opinion, but hopefully my opinion can help some of you guys out there to decide whether you guys want to buy it or not. So without further ado, let's get started with the video. Now the story, in my opinion, is one of the best things in this game. It's one of the things that are holding the reviews higher than they are, and that's because of the story. Now the story isn't perfect by no means. I don't want to give you guys too much spoilers, but there are times where the story isn't as good, and that's when the story plays more like a multiplayer, where you queue up for a match and then you do this and that and certain objectives. That isn't where the story shines. Where the story shines is when the story does things different from other games. For example, when Iron Man's going into space and his suit gets busted because it gets shot by lightning, and he's like struggling to patch it up so that he can breathe because he's in space. That's where the story feels different from other stories. And the problem with this story is that it's decent, it's mediocre up until the end of the story. For the last 2 to 3 hours, that's where the story really shines and it becomes fun. Like the end mission was one of the best missions that I've ever played, but the reason that it sucks is because it's only that mission, you know? There are some missions too, but that end mission was so much fun. It really felt like you were an Avenger, and it made you feel almost like you were doing something, you know? Not to mention the boss fight was really cool. Now, obviously, the story is a little bit shorter. It's about 8 to 10 hours for me. It took me about 8 hours to finish, where some of the longer stories are about 12 to 15 hours. So it is a little bit on the shorter side, but we are going to be getting DLC in the future that's going to increase on the story, so that is okay. Not to mention we have also multiple iconic missions for each of the characters, so you know we're gonna get it kind of like a little branch of that story, so it's okay. Overall, I would give the story a solid 8 out of 10. There are some bugs here and there, but that I'm going to be talking about in a different category. But overall, it's super fun. I just hope that they do more parts where the story does its own thing in the next timeline when Kate Bishop comes out. Now the second category is the characters. Now if you guys don't know, there are 6 characters at launch that you can play as, them being Captain America, Iron Man, Thor, Hulk, Black Widow, and Kamala. Overall, these characters play very different from each other, which is a good thing. They all feel different and feel unique. It doesn't really feel button smashy. It feels very nice and smooth, and it makes you think really what you need to do. There are some really nasty combos that you can pull off with each of the characters, which is really cool. The thing is though, some of the characters are not the best at the start, but are very good at the end, and some of the characters are just very good at the start and are still pretty good at the end. For example, Thor is one of those characters that is very good at the start. Obviously he's a god, but he's very nice and strong at the start compared to all the other characters. While Hulk, you would think he's very strong, but he's not the best character. I still have fun with him, but he's not the best character at the start. But at the end, once you level him up and get the best gears and perks for him and the best skills for him, he is a monster. He doesn't take any damage. He always regenerates his abilities. He's a complete monster how he should be. Too bad it's only at the end of the game. But if I think it is worth the grind, I think it's definitely worth the grind because it's overall very fun. Out of 10, I would give the characters a 10. I think 10 out of 10 definitely for the characters. Not to mention we're going to be getting more characters at the end, or as the game goes on with DLC. Another thing is I really like the aspect of Kamala Khan, because we already have the 5 characters that we all know and love from the movies and the comics, but Kamala is a new take on this game and really makes this game feel apart from the MCU. And I really like the perspective of her because she is a fan of the Avengers, and us, the players, we are fans also of the Avengers. So it kind of gives us something to connect with for Kamala Khan. And the third thing I want to talk about is the the performance. Now, this is the one of two things that is really taking this game down, but every game that comes out always has issues and stuff. This game does have slightly more issues than most games when they come out, but I'm sure that in the weeks coming by, it will mostly be fixed. Like the past 2 weeks, we've gotten 2 different patches of around 100 megabytes that have been small but have fixed a couple of issues. And next week, we're going to be getting a huge patch that is supposed to fix a lot of issues. So I'm really excited for that. But right now, currently at launch, the game is not the best when it comes to performance. For example, you get huge frame drops, especially in multiplayer when there's a lot of enemies around you and you're fighting them. It's just unbearable to watch and unbearable to play. It's just crazy. On top of that, you also have a lot of glitches and issues that don't make the game fun at all. For example, in cutscenes, your character won't have any hair, or there'll be like a wall like glitching for no reason. In any multiplayer, just fighting enemies, sometimes enemies will get stuck in a wall, and then you have to restart the mission, or your game freezes, or your character just like falls through the map. There's a lot of glitches and bugs that are really annoying. One of the big ones that a lot of people are freaking out about or just complaining in general are the fact that they're losing their cosmetics from completing the campaign, and also not getting their cosmetics from the fabrication machine once they decipher their blueprints or their patterns. So it is annoying. They are addressing this, and we should be getting everything that we lost back, but it's still a problem, at least right now. Obviously, I think in a year, this game will be so much better in terms of performance, and I don't think we'll be getting any of these issues, but at launch, this is a glaring issue and is really bringing this game down. Now, overall, for performance, out of 10 being the best and 0 being the worst, I have to give this a 5 out of 10. The performance is not the best at all. It can be very good at times when there isn't that many enemies and you're not getting bad glitches or weird issues. But when you get a lot of enemies and just like these issues and glitches all combined, it turns to one heck of a mess, especially in multiplayer, which we're going to be talking about next. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is the multiplayer, and oh my gosh, is the multiplayer repetitive. Let's get into it. So the multiplayer you would expect to be the best part of the game, because that's what's going to keep people playing for years and years to come. Now, they decided to make this game a looter shooter, so you play multiplayer matches, you fight different enemies, bosses, you get better gear and better gear, and you just get better overall. Your character gets more strong and more powerful, and it's just addictive, and it keeps you doing the same thing. But the way and the method that this game lacks in that is multiple reasons. Number one, the multiplayer missions in general are repetitive. Now, there are some that are different, but eventually, after you do them 3 or 4 times, they get repetitive. They're the same thing. You're just fighting a bunch of robots, and all these 50 different types of enemies are just different elemental types. For example, there's like 5 different adaptoids. There's like a fire one that flies with rocks, a normal one, an ice one. Like, they're just different types of robots, and they all count as a different enemy type, but they're all robots. Like, there's some that are humans, but most of them are robots. Like, just seeing a human that's an enemy that we actually had to fight, it's a relief, right? Now, obviously, I think, with DLC and everything, once they add Wakanda and they add, more missions in space and missions underwater, and maybe we go to Asgard, we're going to be fighting different enemies. But right now, currently, there's a lot of AIM robots. That's all we're fighting. And it makes sense, this is the base story, but it's still repetitive. Not to mention, the objectives are very simple, like standing at a point until the percent goes up to 100 while fighting enemies, like capturing points, killing a certain amount of enemies, protecting a certain amount of humans. It's just the exact same thing over and over. And the mission types itself, the mission maps, they're just kind of bland. A lot of them, like the AIM strongholds, are very similar. They look the exact same. Obviously, the outside looks different. Sometimes it could be a forest or a snowy tundra, but the insides are the exact same most of the time. Not to mention, the boss fights are very repetitive as well, because right now there's only 2 boss fights that we can play at in multiplayer. Now, outside of multiplayer, there are 4 bosses, like actual humans or like villains. But in the game, in multiplayer, there's only 2 villains. Now, there are bigger robots like warbots or warships, but they're robots and they are technically bosses. But I'm talking about actually villains like Abomination and Taskmaster, which are the only villains that we can fight with right now in multiplayer. And they're not very challenging at all. They're pretty much just big tanks with a lot of health that you have to keep hitting over and over for the next 10 minutes. And yes, they give you good loot, but it's still not that fun. After like 2 times, it gets boring. But obviously, you know, a year down the line, we're going to get so many different villains that's going to have a lot of variety. But right now, at launch, it is very repetitive. And that's where I think this game is lacking and not that fun at all. Not to mention, I know it's going to be complicated in the way they do this, and it's very hard for them to do this. But you can't see your gear. And the gear, it does change your stats. Like, it makes you more powerful and everything. And when you really look deep at it, it does look different. But right now, with the gear, like, it looks very, it doesn't change your looks. And it just, I know that's the fact because cosmetics are supposed to change your look, but it just still, it doesn't feel as rewarding as some other games like Destiny, where the gear you get actually changes your looks. But that's my opinion. Now, the multiplayer, I'm going to give a 6 out of 10 because it is the core itself is good, but the way they execute it is not the best. And they leave a lot of cliffhangers, like in Thor's iconic mission. It ends off of them about to fight Loki or something. So it's a lot of stuff that we have to wait and see once they add an update soon. Now, after averaging out all these scores, them being an 8 out of 10 for the story, a 10 out of 10 for the characters, a 5 out of 10 for the performance, and a 6 out of 10 for the multiplayer, I got a 7.25 out of 10 for this game. Now, I'm going to average that out to a 7.5 because I do think this game deserves around a 7.5. Now, I have definitely seen scores lower. I think the lowest score I have seen is a 6 out of 10, and the highest I've seen is an 8 out of 10. But I think a 7.5 is a decent score right now for this game. Obviously, though, I am a Marvel fan, so I think it does elevate my score by at least 1 point. But I think people out there that aren't Marvel fans, I recommend you guys wait a little bit until they add the first wave of DLCs and fix a lot of the bugs, and then after that, see if the game's worth buying. But if you guys are a Marvel fan that wanted to play Marvel Avengers game forever, or just buy every superhero game, I do recommend, I guess, to get it now. You know, it is $60 right now, and probably by Christmas time it's gonna drop a couple of dollars. It's probably gonna be like $40 or something. So if you guys can wait, I suggest waiting. But if you guys just can't wait and need to get your hands on this and just want somewhat of a decent Avengers game, I think you guys should get this game. But that's going to be it for this video, guys. So if you guys liked it, make sure to smash that like button, subscribe, and turn on post notifications. Things have been kind of difficult right now because there's been a lot of stuff going on right now. But hopefully by next week or week after that, we'll be going back to the same schedules. But I am trying right now to be posting as much as I can. But that's it, guys. So have a great rest of the day wherever you guys are. And I will see you guys in the next one. Peace out.